Well, my name is Anthony Wameli Yeboah. The Yeboah name I got while in Senior 3 in Tororo College. Because while in Senior 3, throughout my life I've been playing football, and by that time there was a Ghanaian footballer called Tony Yeboah. He was playing for Frankfurt in Germany, so they nicknamed me Yeboah because I'm Anthony. So the name stuck. That is my name, Wameli Anthony Yeboah. I am a Mugisu, a very proud Mugisu, by origin, by descent, by birth, by everything. I come from Namisindwa district, which was carved out of Manafa, which had earlier been carved out of Mbale. I am a married man, one wife with 3 sons, and I'm also a pastor at Ebenezer Faith Worship Center in Kanyanya. So basically that is all about me. I have been in the legal practice for now 13 years, 2 of which I practiced as a magistrate grade 1 in Nakasongola from 2009 to 2011, when I resigned and chose to concentrate on the law firm Wameli and Company Advocates, where I still work up to today. Briefly, that is all about me.
Did you go to school?
Oh yes, I went to, interestingly, I have my nursery school still exists, only that it's now a nursery and primary school. It's called Kamocha Islamic Nursery and Primary School. By then it was called Nalongo Nursery School when I went to nursery school. From there I went to City High School in Kololo, which is now called either Daffodils or Aria Primary School. From there I went to Busoga College Mwiri for my senior 1, senior 2. I left the school and went to Tororo College, did my O-levels, and then went to Uganda Matters High School, Rubaga, which was by then called Rubaga Boys, for half of the HSC, and I finished my HSC at Busoga College, rather Bukedi College, Kachonga in now Butareja District, formerly Tororo District. Went to Makere, did a bachelor's degree in law, then Law Development Center, and here I am.
During your days in school, did you have a dream career?
Yes, my dream career, especially the first years of O-level, was to be a medical doctor. I really desired, I think I still have that small desire within me to be a medical doctor, but one of the reasons I did not pursue medicine or sciences at A-level is by that time I used to drink a lot. And I used to escape from school to go and drink, and I'll come back so tired and couldn't do my physics class yet because it was so early in the morning. Unfortunately, the last test I did in physics, I was the best in class. But because of those reasons, I could not pursue it. Then in HSC, I changed my dream and started to dream to become a lawyer, which I dreamt half, and my mother dreamt the remaining part of it. It's a very interesting story behind how I chose to cross over from Bachelor of Arts in Education that I was offered at Makerere University to change course and go to School of Law.
How did this happen?
I was given education, day program, private, part half sponsored because my mother was a secretary in School of Education. Then she had a dream one day in the first week of my going to university, and in this dream she just saw a big word, justice. So when she saw that word in the dream, she woke up and said, I think you need to change the course and study law. I said, I can't. It's expensive, it's longer, 4 years, education is 3 years, it's very tough, it's not even easy, I can't handle. She insisted. We had a very big quarrel. I think if it was any other neighbor or friend would have parted ways, but she was my mother, I couldn't do anything much. So I heeded, and she went and picked the forms for change of course. I signed them hesitantly. Thank God the results came back. Actually, my going to law school, I have a form changing course from the School of Education to School of Law. So I joined law school 2 weeks into our beginning, our first year in 2000. So that's how I came to do law and become the lawyer I am. That's why I pursue my cases with a lot of passion, with a lot of confidence, because I know it is divine, I know it's a calling, I know it is where I'm supposed to be. The satisfaction that the practicing law has given me, I do not. I think if I still hold that dream of being a medical doctor, is just to satisfy me as a human being, but I do not regret not doing rather medicine. And I also am very proud to have pursued law, and I couldn't have done better. Thank God I am. After the bachelor's degree, you know, as a lawyer, you have to go to Law Development Center. So right away, I went to Law Development Center and also enrolled for a master's program at Makerere University. Now, I started looking for a job, but I didn't get the job in the first 1 week of finishing law school, rather LDC. So being a preacher of the gospel, I was also a member of a team called Tororo Schools Outreach Team. It's at Makerere University. I joined them for a mission in Tororo. And while in Tororo, a friend of mine, now a lawyer, called Waliemera Daniel, gave me a call and said, hey, do you need a job? A law firm wants to hire you here. I said, yes, I can get a job, and I want to get a job. So he said, come over. I left Tororo, came back to Kampala, and met a gentleman called Rutiba Daniel, very wonderful man with his wife, Patricia. The firm was by then called Omni Legal Advocates. So he asked me whether I wanted to work. I said, yes, I wanted to work. He asked me whether I was born again. I said, well, you just called me from a mission ground. I've been preaching. He told me you have the job. So the following day, I started working with Omni Legal Advocates, which is now Rutiba and Company Advocates. That was my first job. And while I was doing that job, because I wanted to get probably more payment, I applied for a job as a judicial officer, magistrate, grade 1. And by the time I applied, I did not have my certificate from LDC. I had completed but not yet graduated. So I put in an application for a magistrate's post when I didn't have enough paperwork. One of them was pending. But by faith, I said, let me put it in. After 2 years, after I had graduated, I had enrolled as an advocate of the High Court of Uganda, working now with my new firm, Wameli and Company Advocates. I received a text message from the Judicial Service Commission saying, hey, come for interviews. You made an application. So I went for the interview. I couldn't even remember when I applied, but later I recalled and I went for the interview this time with all my paperwork, and I passed. I passed and was posted to Nakasongola, where I worked for 1 year and 7 months, close to 2 years. Then, because of the need to continue running my firm and bettering it, I decided to resign. I resigned as a magistrate grade 1 and came back to Wameli and Company Advocates, and that's where I am now. Not really. By the time I became a magistrate, I already had a law firm. And I thought someone would either buy out my interest in the law firm or continue with the law firm to serve the people and also make some money. And I could get some money also as the owner or the proprietor for the goodwill. I failed. I failed to get that person. I failed to get that deal through. And the dream to serve as a lawyer, I think, continued to haunt me. And every day I would resign as a magistrate, but because I needed to be sure, I continued working until I decided, no, enough is enough. I have to choose to either be a practitioner in private practice or to be a judicial officer. And the dice fell on remaining a private practitioner. So I reluctantly put in my resignation. I remember the chief registrar then, now Justice Peter Adonyo, a very good friend of mine also, received my resignation letter with regrets. He actually asked me whether I was just uncomfortable with the station where I was. I told him, no, Your Worship, it is a personal decision. It is personal to me. Just let me go. So he allowed me to go back with regrets, and I still cherish the times I served on the bench, and it was a wonderful time. To be a magistrate is fun, I should say, because you have a lot of powers. You know, when you say a word and no one else can answer unless they appeal, is good, humanly speaking. But it's also very challenging. Especially when it comes to writing a judgment. You can write a judgment about 3 or 5 times. You go to sleep, you remember the evidence, you think about this, you think about the other witness, look at this document. Sometimes it's within your mind trying to find out whether this one was the correct version of the story or this other witness lied. So it's challenging, but the challenge is good for any human being. I enjoy it, and the other thing is there's a lot of pressure. First of all, from the people. People always ask you to receive bribes. all the time, especially at judgment time. People would call you, they would go through the clerks, they would go through other individuals trying to ask about the judgment, with the likely outcome. So it's a challenge because the temptations to be bribed are very high. And also the pressure, sometimes from the leaders, political leaders, the other local leaders, other government departments, the pressure. And the time I was in Nakasongola, especially 2011, was an election time. There was always pressure here, demonstrations. Police has their version of how to handle the people suspected and brought to court. The lawyers on the private side also had their own version. So as a judicial officer, you needed to stand. You needed a strong back to stand by the law and the facts, not the opinion and the wishes of the people. I am glad to say that I steered clear of that pressure, and if I rendered any decision at that time or during my time as a judicial officer, I am proud of it, I stand by it, and I think it was right in the circumstances. Well, private practice is very good. It's very challenging. You need to be up all the time. You need to up your game. The competition is so high. If you're a judicial officer, the competition is not as it is when you're a private practitioner, because as a judicial officer you have the discretion, quite wide discretion in most cases, if not all cases. You can sway the case anyway and still remain within the law. But as a private practitioner, you must win, either through getting a good judgment or through putting in your best, so that even the client, all and sundry, can see that the lawyer has done their best. Then number two, you have to earn every day. You have to earn a penny every day. You have to manage your business. You have to pay staff. You can't afford to fall sick. You can't afford to fall sick. You have to manage your life in such a way that you're up and about all the time, because if you don't, you will not be paid. As a judicial officer, you can have a leeway. You can actually take off a sick leave. But for me at Wameli and Company, I have to apply to myself, and sometimes I find it so hard to grant me leave to be off work for a very long time. So that is about private practice. The other beauty about private practice is even the sky cannot be the limit. You can take on any matter. As long as you believe in it, as long as you're up to the challenge, the opportunities are open. If I'm a judicial officer, I may say a very interesting case, but it's not allocated to me, I can't go for it. Probably because of jurisdiction or because of the geographical or pecuniary jurisdiction. But as a legal practitioner, anyone comes to me, I believe in their case, no matter the magnitude, whether high profile or low profile or ordinary, I will take it on, and every case that you take on is an advertisement for you for another case, and the chain continues growing. So that's the beauty about private practice. Maybe the other thing is, as a private practitioner, you can manage your time, you can manage your work. You can work up to midnight. Sometimes I leave office at 1. Sometimes I continue, extend the office home and work up through the night. Sometimes I can choose to sleep and rest and relax. I choose which cases I can handle, which cases I will not handle. I can actually help within my mandate. I can do pro bono as and when I wish. So I enjoy those things about private practice, and I think I'm not regretting where I am. Never. There is no decision I made and regretted. The decisions that I made, I'm proud of them. So much that, especially in the criminal cases, I decided to even go and see the prisoners who I sent to prison. And they were so receptive. They were so happy about that. Most of them, if not all those I talked to, confirmed that you sent me here for the right reason. Interestingly, one time after I left Nakasongola, about 5 years after my leaving, I went with a friend of mine, Honorable Judith Babili, and another one, Joseph Ngoma, they are gospel artists. We went to a friend of ours called Pastor Male in Chichu, Saluero, to minister. So as we were returning, they went ahead of me and my vehicle got stuck. While I was stuck, some young men came to help me out, and I was alone in the car. And I kept hearing them, one of them saying, "This man must leave this place. This man should leave this place. I can't go home until his car is out of the mud." And later he told me, "You don't know me, but me, I know you. You were a magistrate in Nakasongola. You sent me to prison for the right reason. You followed us up in prison, and you preached to us through your ministry, Ebenezer Faith Ministries. It taught me a lot. I'm out of prison, and I'm now a better person. So I can't leave you." So it really touched me. I am proud of the decisions I made. I don't regret any decision I made as a judicial officer. Well, first of all, we learned in economics that human needs are insatiable. You can't satisfy them. One satisfied need calls for demand on another side. So I can say comfortably that I am not I'm not crashing. I am not where I would have loved to be economically, but I'm not complaining, I'm not regretting. I think I am comfortable, especially being hopeful that things are going to become better because I see the green light. The challenge would be you realize that you have what we could call debts or liabilities outstanding. And the comfort with that is that as many debts as we have as a law firm, we have so many credits that we have not yet realized due to the technicalities in the practice, the execution processes, the demanding. But if we brought in our assets and liabilities, we would more than 10 times overcome the liabilities that we have. So economically, I'm not complaining, only that we need a lot of work to do to balance between the liabilities and the assets. First of all, it is challenging. I keep learning every day that sometimes you receive a client at a time when you're so exhausted, so tired, so stressed out, and you tend to give them little attention sometimes. So later they turn out to be very good clients. But generally, at Wameli and Company Advocates, we try, or I try, to personalize every client that comes, no matter the claim. That's why sometimes you'll find me in a magistrate's court, you'll find me in a labor court, you'll find me in a courts martial, you'll find me in the Supreme Court. I handle all cases because I give special attention to all and every case. So every client that comes, I want to, but I cross-examine almost all my clients. By the time I take on your case, we are speaking the same language. And many times people have come, I've asked them questions, I've become the devil's advocate on the other side to see what questions we can expect against their case. And some have thought I am not interested in handling their case and have walked away. But that's how I handle my clients. And once we speak the same language, once we agree on how to move, we are speaking the same evidence, then I'm good to go and I will go with that client all the way. Then number two, I always want my clients to commit themselves to me as their lawyer, for the obvious reasons that some of the cases we are handling are not on a high profile, but also it's easy for someone to be swayed. I'll give an example. I have a client called Jamil Mukulu. Jamil Mukulu is in upper prison in Luzira, and his case has so many intertwined issues. And he has also had quite many lawyers. And some lawyers have already done some work for him. And it's a kind of case that you do not want to instruct yourself upon. Sometimes you tell someone, I have instructions from Jamil Mukulu and I've spoken to him, and they will not believe you. There are other cases where people come through because of the social media advertisement, rather messages and information. Someone comes up, like the Ziggy Wine case, someone has been killed and the family thinks they were murdered and someone needs to pay for the murder, but because of media pressure, some clients tend to back out and go away. So you want them to commit and write that we have instructed you to do ABCD for us, so that at the end of the day, if they turn around, you have something to show that I have instructions for these people and I'm working for them. Then number two, I would want to involve part of the family, because some of the clients are prone to being arrested, prone to being abducted. I have some clients who sometimes are in hiding and you can't get to them until you get through the family. So I try to widen the scope and involve many of their family members and next of kin, so that we can keep in touch and see that we move the case to its logical conclusion. Well, I will say everyone has their time, and those are some of the blessings that I believe God brings your way, and that's why the word justice always comes back to me. I believe that there are lawyers who have handled so many high-profile cases, and some of them I just used to admire. Senior Counsel Kabega Makdusman. While I was studying, I used to hear about him. When I joined law school, I feared almost every lawyer. I think the tip of my desiring to be a lawyer started while I was in Tororo College. A certain fellowship of this team I called TOSOT, Tororo Schools Outreach Team, came and visited us. By then I wasn't even born again. I was in senior 3. But I saw a particular gentleman who was so smart in a suit and in a tie. And I said I want to be this guy's profession. That's how I started to desire. So as I joined law school, I dreamt, or I started having a vision that I should, first of all, be a lawyer that is respected and known. Number two, I should have a law firm that is connected to me. I don't want to be employed all the time. I should have Wameli as my name on a law firm letterhead, on a law firm poster, on a law firm profile. Then number three, I wanted to be my boss so that I would practice the law in the area that I want to. So as that dream crystallized, I treasured practice so much. Thank God for Counsel Sekabanja Edward, where I did my training. He was so strict. He was so strict. If you missed a dot, he will send you back to correct it. So, but because I had a dream of being my own manager, I learned to be managed first before I could manage myself. So I perfected especially writing. How do I come to high profile cases? One time I wrote a letter to prisons for a client, and one of the prisoners, a high profile prisoner in Luzirapa prison, read my letter and told the person who went with that letter to get my contact. And I got the contact, and he asked me to do some work for him and for his mother. So when other inmates saw me with him and the press saw me with him, they started following me or covering my cases. And he brought me another very high profile client in Luzira who brought another one, and as the chain went on, clients started coming in, and I also personally, having handled that first high profile case, started to build the muscle to withstand the press pressure, the threats pressure, intimidation, sometimes from security agencies, and coupled with the dream and the vision of serving justice and what my mom had seen, I developed the character so strong that I would take on people like Con if they instructed me with a genuine cause. So that is how I come up with high profile cases, whereby if someone came and said, "Will you take on such a case?" I have the determination, and I think I've also built the character and the experience enough to handle their case. And that's how one keeps bringing another. One high profile case catapults you to another, and this is where we are now. I draw my comfort in the fact that I did not bribe my way here. I have not looked for any high-profile case, not even one. All the high-profile cases have found me in my office. Then number three, I am not doing anything subversive. I'm not violating the law. I'm not cheating anyone. I'm serving justice in the profession I went to school for. So that is the comfort I have. The pressure is always there, but since I have no dirty blood on my hands, I'm always willing to go all the way. And I also don't take issues personal. If I'm taking on a police officer, for example, for violating someone's right, I'll first talk to them. I'll tell them, "Officer, this is not right." And I always give notices of intention to sue, to warn them, also talk to them and say, "This is what I intend to do in case you do not better what you have done wrong." So by the time I take them on, they have themselves to blame. They will have themselves to blame for the situations they're in. So that keeps me going. And sometimes I also, of course, I'm a prayerful person, and also believe in my mother's and other friends, my wife's and church prayers. That's why I keep the pressure away and intimidation away, and believe that God will protect us. First of all, like I said, I love the practice. I love the profession. I'm here by divine intervention. So I do not only wish that Wameli is flourishing and enjoying the profession, but every lawyer who has gone to law school and probably gone to law development center, got a diploma to practice law, should be able to enjoy the profession. That's why I say, let's work together. Let me put a brick on the betterment of the society that joins us as professionals in this legal profession. So through the times I've been under presidents, I've seen what they have done. I have looked at the Act, the Law Society Act. I've looked at the provisions of that Act and the objectives, where it was formed. I know what lawyers go through. I know what judicial officers go through. I know what lawyers go through. I know what in-house lawyers go through, private practitioners, and so many challenges surrounding the legal profession as a whole. And I have also, like said before, developed this character of a go-getter. If I know something is legal, something is genuinely belonging to you, you are entitled to it. I will stop at nothing to ensure that I achieve that thing. So it's that character, that experience, that determination and zeal that I believe I want to put onto the Law Society table so that I can be given the opportunity to rally for the rights of lawyers. I've rallied for the rights of clients, some of them pro bono, some of them paying me. So I believe the lawyers also have rights that need to be promoted, to be protected, the right to practice a profession, the right to be insulated against prosecution while going about their ordinary course of work. So that is the kind of experience that I felt it would be unfair for me to keep only at Wameli and Company Advocates, and I want to transport it to the helm of the Law Society and serve for a year or two if I'm given the mandate. And I believe by the time I leave, all and sundry will know that the lawyers are not only money makers, but it's a calling. It's a profession that is supposed to serve Uganda, the government of Uganda, the judiciary, and the members of the profession themselves. I believe that the lawyer's voice added onto my determination will make us go to heights where we have desired to be as a legal profession. One, I believe in my entire practice, I have not been selfish. I have tried to involve and benefit as many people as I could. That's what I think is a very big advantage with me, that if you look at my practice, it has not only been about earning money. If it was, I think I would be very rich. But there are some cases I've taken on just because our society demands that those cases be given justice. Then number two, I don't think any of the other contenders would even step in any of the high-profile cases I'm handling. Not because they're lawyers, but because they probably have not had the opportunity to build the capacity I have done. My first case in my entire practice life was in the court-martial at Mbuya. That case has a lot to do with my fiber and character. It was in a court-martial. My client had spent 6 years incommunicado, and now he had just been charged with illegal possession of firearms. I had never stood before in a court, apart from the moot court in LDC while training. So here I am, newly married in 2007. I told my wife I have gone for a case I have never handled. It's about soldiers and about the army, but this is what I studied to do. So I went to that court, and 6 years behind bars, I drove out with my client. I realized you can even practice in the court-martial. If you're a lawyer doing the right thing, you can be heard anywhere. So that is the character I have built into now the Kawesi murder suspects case, into now the Jamil Mukulu case, into the Lieutenant General Tumukunde case, into the Bobby Wine case, the treason cases. So those cases have built a character within me that will be able to push the cause, because the cause of the Law Society is not a feeble-hearted person's cause. For example, during the lockdown, the government closed out all the lawyers, it closed out all the judges, and every lawyer was lamenting. And I said, how can we lament yet the law gives us a leeway? That's why I took up a matter and said, I tried to engage with the leadership. I think they were a bit slow. I said, no, I think the Law Society deserves better. I went to court, and evidence will bear me out that even the presidential directive on 30 lawyers at a particular time, it came because we had a matter in the court against Attorney General and the Minister for Health demanding that lawyers be included on the list of essential services. You'll also realize that the president spoke on Tuesday and the ruling was due on Thursday. And in the ruling, the judge widened the scope from beyond 30 lawyers and said every lawyer that has a client in a deserving case, especially on fair hearing and habeas corpus, those lawyers must be able to attend to their clients, not only a court, but even their clients. And as we are moving around as lawyers, that is the reason we are moving. And I've just talked to someone in the Attorney General's office, and he told me they are sitting to discuss the modalities like the court ordered on how lawyers can be facilitated to reach their clients, whether in Kampala or over Uganda. And I think those are the kinds of contributions that I believe I have an advantage over my fellow contenders. Political ambitions. Yes. First of all, presidency, Uganda Law Society is a political position. It's an elective position, so it is an ambition. And before that, I had the political ambition of representing the people of Namisindwa in Parliament. In Parliament, and so those dreams were running concurrently, and I had to reach a point of choosing to go with one first, because they all were in line with what I see, especially on the rule of law, human rights, and good governance. So as a member of parliament, I believe I would have added a brick on the rule of law, especially on good legislation, on holding a government accountable for good governance, and also on human rights enforcement, because I've appeared before the Human Rights Committee of Parliament and I have presented my clients' cases there, and I realized how powerful a good legislator who has a zeal for the rule of law, human rights, and constitutionalism would contribute towards the development of Uganda. Then here comes the Law Society presidency, that I believe is even more direct on the human rights, rule of law, and good governance aspects. Why? Because the Law Society mandate is so clear on what the Law Society can do and what the President Uganda Law Society can do. The President of Uganda Law Society represents the society on almost all the institutions, boards in this country that have an aspect of justice, especially the justice, law, and order sector. So that is how I have been building my political ambitions. I'm also a leader in the People Power movement. I am in the part of the policy team, still drafting good and lawful and also constitutional policies that are alternative to the existing policies by the existing regime. And I'm also a coordinator of the People Power, especially in Eastern Uganda, and also in the diaspora and international relations. So it shows you the kind of desire that drives me, much as it culminates into you having probably to be in an elected position to do that which you think is right for the country. So I'm not a politician looking for a job. I'm a politician looking for an opportunity to use my experience, my determination, and my zeal to contribute towards the rule of law, constitutionalism, human rights, and also good governance. Whether I plan to contest in Namisimda or not, I think will largely depend on the outcome of the ULS presidency. If I am the president of Uganda Law Society, I do not see myself also as a member of parliament, because that will be too much for me, and I may not give both or one of them the service that they demand. So as president of Uganda Law Society, I don't see myself contest. But if there is the opportunity to be president of Uganda Law Society, then later be member of parliament, I'll definitely take that up, because I'll be continuing on the dream and the desires that I have already outlined. So I won't serve both, but I would want to serve both of them at different times. I don't get, I make the free time. I normally get free time, only that in the recent maybe 6 months I've been overwhelmed. I've been overwhelmed with work, but I'm managing. But I do get free time. Our ministry runs a football team. It's called Ebenezer Faith FC. I am a player on that team, licensed by FUFA. We play in the first division. By the time we went into the lockdown COVID-19, we were leading our table with about seven points. So I'm a footballer during my free time. I go for training. I play football. Very good midfielder with very good distribution skills. I'm also the manager and the CEO of that team. So that's the team, or that is the activity that I normally create time for. And also create time for football. I love to watch football as a Manchester United fan. I love to go to Nambole if there is a national game to watch. So I create free time to also stay with my kids and family, and also do ministry work. I always find time to do church work. I always find time to go and preach on crusades. I have radio programs for the church that I preach on. So I always make the time to balance and have time for home and other activities apart from the professional work. Yes, role models I have talked about Counsel Kabegada. I did not meet him one-on-one. I also had very great admiration for some judicial officers. Some judicial officers that would render judgments and you would read through and you feel this is something very good, especially Justice Lugaizi. I remember I was still in law school when the VCJ case came up, the PRA suspects case. I really desired to be a judicial officer that can stand against pressure. I looked up to people like Counsel David Mpanga, Counsel Ogalo, lawyers who stood in cases that appeared to be against government, but because of the, not against, but government on the other side, but because I saw the zeal with which they committed to their causes, with which they committed to their professionalism. The later Counsel Sam Njuba Kalega, that one was so humbling because there's a time I was supposed to apply for bail for people in Kasanga, to the area where I grew up, and he came. So as a senior lawyer, I had to stand aside for him to proceed. And he said, no, Counsel, since you have already started, let me become a surety as you apply for bail. I was humbled, and those are some of the people that I looked up and desired to be like them, and I still appreciate their contributions in my life, though many of them may never have heard this from me directly. Wow. First of all, I practice in that court, so any person that is in that court that thinks they want to be Chief Justice would not like the comment if I said so and so should. But yes, there are some people that I believe are Chief Justice material, and without anything personal, I would personally think that probably someone like Justice Chivita would make a very good Chief Justice. I think for now I'll talk about Justice Chivita because I've talked to him one-on-one. I know him through the Uganda Christian Lawyers Fraternity. I interacted with him right while I was still at law school. I've seen him and his consistency. Though I also have some issues, not personal but professional, that I've raised with him, because most of these Kawes murder suspects were charged during his time as DPP, and I brought it up to him and said, my lord, why would you charge someone who has come from Nalufenya, having spent there about 3 months, tortured, and has judgment of the High Court? So, but for me, I think he is very good Chief Justice material, among others that probably one could also think of a female Chief Justice. I don't think we've had one. There are very interesting judicial officers in the Supreme Court, like Justice Lee and Tibatemwa. She taught me while at law school criminal law and criminal liability, and together with others, I think if we got any of those, they could steer the court to heights.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.